I think the biggest reason I wanted to make this video is just my pure excitement about what's coming up, but I really do think that July 2025 will be the most important month for all of comic book movies. I shouldn't need to tell any of you this, but this is, of course, because we are getting both Superman and Fantastic Four First Steps in the same month. DC's first superhero and Marvel's first family. Both have some of the most important stories for comics, and yet their time on the big screen has been complicated. Superman had a run in the 80s with the original Superman movie being something I am still impressed by to this day, and 3 movies following it that I hated. It seemed like the more they tried to do with Superman, the worse those movies got. But even with the failures of Superman 3 and 4, these were still the movies that started everything and showed the potential of superhero movies. It is because of that original Superman movie that we even got things like Batman 89 and the Raimi Spider-Man movies. We wouldn't see any more Superman until 2008 with Superman Returns, a kind of weird sequel to just the first 2 Superman movies, which is a very strange thing to do, and it didn't work. With the failure of another Superman movie and seemingly a turning point for Superman as a whole, Warner Bros. And DC made Zack Snyder's Man of Steel starring Henry Cavill. Now, I don't care if you love or hate this movie. You cannot deny that Henry Cavill was done dirty. He got one real movie, Man of Steel. That was his movie. That was Superman's movie. And the issue with like every origin story is that the whole point of it is just to establish the character. So of course, this movie was necessary to tell us what this Superman was going to be. And so we didn't actually get to see a whole lot of Superman being Superman. Immediately following that, we got Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, which gave Superman a little more than 40 lines in the theatrical cut, and then killed him. Of course, they brought him back right before the final act of Justice League, a movie named after a team that he is normally the leader of. He was dead for most of the movie. That was kind of like the final point where things really went to shit between Zack and Warner, and we would see Superman a few more times, but we would never actually see his face, or like he wouldn't actually do anything. At least not until the post-credit scene of Black Adam, where he would do something and we would see his face. But then all the movies got canceled and the universe got rebooted. Henry Cavill never getting his own second solo movie to actually just be Superman is a travesty, no matter how you feel about the rest of the movies. At least Christopher Reeve got 4 movies of Superman. I actually found out like after I wrote this script, but apparently things were very complicated for Richard Donner when it came to making his Superman movies, which led to there being a second release of Superman 2 deemed the Donner Cut, which was of course Richard Donner's original vision for the movie before it was taken away from him. So it seems like, for whatever reason, something has always been against Superman movies, or at the very least, the people who wanted to make them. I think it's safe to say that there's more bad than there is good when it comes to the Man of Steel's appearances on the big screen. But at least that's more than Fantastic Four can say it has. The Fantastic Four had 2 movies released pre-MCU in 2005 and 2007. I'm sure these movies were fine at the time, but I was a child and I couldn't tell you how they actually were compared to anything else coming out at the time. But what I can tell you now is they were kind of fun to rewatch, but also kind of not a good representation of what I think the Fantastic Four is supposed to be. Like, I do not think these people would consider themselves a family. They do not like each other, and I just don't think these movies actually did anything to make anyone excited about the Fantastic Four. Like, these movies, they didn't age well, especially with like what superhero movies were starting to look like around that time. Of course, the rise of the MCU would not be the death of the Fantastic Four. Sure, we weren't getting a continuation of those movies, but maybe that was for the best. Instead, we would get a new Fantastic Four movie in 2015 that we, the fans, have deemed fan-four-stick. You can tell they really wanted to do something different with this take of the Fantastic Four, so they made the characters younger and seemingly based things on the Ultimate comics, and they made it really boring. Like, just really bland and boring, and once again, made these 4 people seem like they hated each other. The most memorable thing about this movie is the final line.
Say that again?
It's so bad. So no matter how you look at them, love them, hate them, we really haven't had any movies about either of these comic book legends in the last 10 years, and we've barely had any good ones in all of their time on the big screen. So it's safe to say that the new Fantastic Four and Superman movies both have the important job of properly representing these characters in ways that honor their comic book origin and counterparts, as well as being good enough to stand on their own in an overpopulated market, and also try to warrant sequels to continue these specific versions of these characters. And yes, we want to continue to make movies about these characters. Sure, they're not as big as Spider-Man or Batman, but at this point, I don't think anyone can ever top those two in terms of popularity. But Superman and the Fantastic Four are major players in both Marvel and DC. The Fantastic Four are great at showing how important ideas like teamwork and family values are. Each member of the Fantastic Four is weighed down by their own baggage, but they're able to bring out the best in each other. Fantastic Four also have some of the most important villains in all of Marvel. Villains like Doctor Doom, Galactus, Super-Skrull, and of course, the Mole Man. Each of these characters being major threats in the entire Marvel universe, especially Mole Man. And while Superman may not have the most important rogues gallery in DC, I do think it's safe to say Superman is the most important hero when it comes to facing the biggest bads in DC. With characters like Doomsday and Darkseid, the Justice League is normally shown to be a little outmatched without Superman. And if we don't look at alternate versions of the characters, Superman is the hero representing hope in comics. Truth, justice, a better tomorrow. That's Superman. So yes, I very much believe both Superman and the Fantastic Four are some of the most important characters in their universes, and it sucks that the thing that seems to reach the biggest audiences, the movies, have handled these characters so poorly, especially when they're doing great in so many other forms of media. Of course, comics, always great, also kind of always not great though. A lot of ups and downs there, but they always show the characters love. Marvel Rivals had the Fantastic Four added as the first few additional characters post-launch, and it's acting as a great reminder who the Fantastic Four are supposed to be and how fun they can be. And it seemed like a lot of people were really excited to see them. And sure, Superman hasn't been doing great in live-action movies recently, but he has had a run in animation. Also, people really like Superman and Lois. For all of the existing fans, it's not hard to find good media for these characters, but they deserve time in the spotlight. They deserve to gain new fans and show the world what they can do. So I think these movies are very important for these characters specifically, and I could go on and on about how great Superman and the Fantastic Four are, and how important it is that these movies do well for the sake of those specific characters. But I think these movies actually have more writing on them than just doing right by these characters. Marvel and DC have been in a pretty weird place with their movies recently, and these two kind of seem like pretty big make it or break it points. I mean, DC is coming off a bad run of movies that led them to an awkward reboot that will probably confuse all of your girlfriends when you drag them to see these movies. Trying to explain that, no, this isn't the same as all the other movies, but Peacemaker is in both universes, kind of. And so is The Suicide Squad, probably, because Peacemaker was in that. And maybe Blue Beetle is in this universe, I don't know, they haven't confirmed that one either. But also, Creature Commandos is technically like the first actual project in the DCU, and that's like technically continuation of other stuff, but then it's also like not connected to other stuff, and it's a whole mess. It's a complicated transition, and it seems like Superman has the burden of actually being the project that tells everyone what the new DC is going to look like. So, if it isn't good, I doubt we see any kind of live-action movie universe for DC, like, moving forward. We know Supergirl is done filming, and they will release that next year, I hope. But if Superman doesn't do well, or is poorly received, then I assume, like Supergirl's out, right? Like, all this is out. Like Warner does not have faith in its projects, and does not like to give its projects time to be good. Time means they're not making money right now, and they want to make money right now. So if they're not making money right now, they're not gonna keep going with whatever projects are happening. I wanted that Wonder Woman game so goddamn badly. Why'd they take it from us? Goddamn monsters. Marvel isn't quite in the same boat, but they haven't had the best run lately. It seems like phase 4 and 5 were about like 50-50, right? This project is good, but this one's bad, and this one's kind of bad, but mainly good, and this one's kind of good, but mainly bad. I know Doomsday and Secret Wars are going to be good because it'll probably have too many cameos and crossovers, and we might finally get to see all of our favorite superheroes from the last 25 years share the same screen, and that's great for when we go to watch it in the theater, but what about after that? We can't really get bigger than what we're about to get, right? So what's the plan after this? I honestly think that depends on the Fantastic Four. I think if the Fantastic Four is received and performs well, then that'll prove to Marvel and the fans we're safe. We can still tell new, interesting stories about comic book characters that you may not necessarily care the most about, but a movie like this can come around and make you care. Like, we don't need every movie to be connected and full of cameos and references to other things that are happening. Like, a movie can just stand on its own, right? And if the Fantastic Four can't do that, then I could see Marvel saying, well, then no one could do it. I don't see them stopping or rebooting necessarily, but I could see them being more hesitant about trying different things. Like, I could see them not wanting to take risks and do things like Fantastic Four, and I could see them continuing to just make more Brave New Worlds, like just make what works kind of deal. Movies that are just fine and safe enough to get enough people to watch and make enough money. I don't think if either of these movies do bad, then that will end comic book movies as a whole. And I also don't want this to come off as me being worried about these movies. Like, I'm extremely excited for both Superman and Fantastic Four. I don't think I trust anyone more than James Gunn to do Superman right now, because if there's one thing James Gunn is good at, it is taking characters that people do not care about and making everyone care about them. And I say that for Superman. I say that in this context because whenever I talk to normal people, casual fucking people, and I bring up Superman, they don't care. They're not interested in Superman. They're like, he's boring, he's whatever. The grand world, while they know Superman, they don't necessarily care about Superman. I don't know how many people were like begging for Superman movies. I know the few of us that really want are loud about it, but I don't know how many people there actually are. And I think this is a good way to remind all those normal people, like, hey, no, Superman is really cool, and we can tell some really good stories with Superman. And I'm also not worried about Fantastic Four. Like, I love the tone of this movie. I love how it looks. I love that it's the first, like, actual movie taking advantage of the multiverse properly, not in a way that's like, hey, look, it's just like a parallel universe, so, like, all the characters look the same except this one, but it looks exactly like how you want them to. And also, here are all the Spider-Man characters from all the Spider-Man movies you love, and no other characters, and it doesn't make sense because we're dumb. And here's a guy going through 16 dimensions and none of them matter, and then he ends up in this random stupid one. I don't like what they've done with the multiverse. I like Loki, that's it. But Fantastic Four is actually just a different universe, not connected to 1999999 whatever. This is giving them more freedom to actually do whatever they want. They're not boxed in like the rest of everything has been. They can do so much more with this, and that's what it looks like they're doing. They're doing something different and more. It's still Marvel, it still has that feel, but it's doing something different and new and fresh, and it makes me excited for what they can do moving forward. So I do think that the success of both of these movies can lead comic book movies into a golden era. Imagine a world where both Marvel and DC are putting out high quality movies that respect and advance our favorite comic book characters and show them in a new light and give them to the largest audience possible somewhat consistently. That's the goddamn dream. That's what we want, right? Like, that, as nerds, as the people who love these comic book characters. I know that's all I want. I don't want this. I want this. But this only works if both of these movies succeed. Both Superman and Fantastic Four can be the movies that remind the world what comic book movies can be. When we let movies be made with passion and love and the best intentions for the fans to enjoy them. And it's so unfortunate that no one's gonna see either of these movies, because we're all going to see Jurassic Park, baby! Okay, thanks. See ya.